Park2Park podcast, where we compare theme park offerings from coast to coast. We don't always see eye to eye, but in the end, we'll try. I'm one of your hosts, CJ, and I'm joined by my other co-host, and my sister, Alli. Alli, how are you on this Sunday afternoon?
Hi, CJ. I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing okay. I am a little tired. I went to Magic Kingdom pretty late last night, but it was fun. So I'm here now and living the life.
Living the dream.
Yeah, pretty much. Well, today we have a very exciting, very special guest with us today. Her name is Elaine, and she's from the PlanDisney Panel.
Ooh.
Yeah, and we're really excited to talk to her. She's truly a Walt Disney World Resort expert. That's her specialty on the panel. So we're going to be chatting with her and getting some of her opinions on the differences between Walt Disney World Resort and Disneyland Resort. And she's going to have a little showdown of her own.
Let's get into it.
Today we have with us a very special guest, Elaine, who is a PlanDisney panelist specializing in the Walt Disney World Resort. Welcome to the show, Elaine.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So before we get started, some of our audience, myself included, frankly, may not know what the PlanDisney Panel is and what they do. So can you explain that for us?
Sure. PlanDisney is an online forum where folks who are planning a Disney vacation can submit questions, or one way they can use it is to search questions that have already been asked. We have thousands and thousands of questions database that you can search, or you can submit your own question. Walt Disney World, Disneyland, Disney Cruise Line, and Disney Vacation Club. Any questions in any of those specialties, we have panelists who can answer. We also do some social media tips and tricks and videos, and people can submit questions through Instagram as well, like once a month. We do podcasts and media trips. It's just a really cool tool that people can use, and then it's a cool thing for the panelists to do as well.
Cool. Yeah, I've used it myself to search answers for questions. It's definitely a helpful tool.
Yes. You have to watch the time, because Disney changes all the time. So, we try to keep that purged of information that's no longer correct, but sometimes it's best to just submit your own question to get the most up-to-date answer.
Mm-hmm.
And, we try to be personable with the answers and personalize the question. And we are not allowed to cut and paste. Like every question is fresh, and I don't even save mine so that I, wouldn't be tempted, because I do
Right.
want to do them. We look at every question as if, it's the person's first and only trip they're ever going to take. And some of the questions are very technical and, important, and others, or I had one last week about, do they still slice your candy apples for you on property? And apparently this was a big deal for this person. And they are huge, those big
Yes.
candy apples with the Mickey ears and stuff. And I guess they used to have a big cleaver that they would use right at the confectionery. And then during COVID, they stopped doing that.
Oh,
So this
no.
person wanted to know, and that could have been a tradition they had with their family. Like, you don't know all the backstory. So I treated it very seriously, but I had fun with it. I
Yeah.
worked at a lot of Snow White poison apple references. You want to have fun with it. You want them to have fun with the answer. So it's really fun. I love to write. So they look for people, who like to write and who love Disney. So
Cool.
that's me.
Awesome.
Perfect. So when approximately was your first trip to Walt Disney World, and how often do you get to go now?
So my first trip to Walt Disney World, I was an adult. We had just had our son, and my parents offered to keep him. He was about a year old. And they said, why don't you guys take a trip, just the two of you, get away, kind of your reward for raising a 1-year-old. So neither of us, my husband nor I, have been to Walt Disney World as children. My mom is a redhead with beautiful freckles, and she would not go to Florida. That just not going to happen. So I never even asked. So he and I planned the trip, and this was back in the dark ages when you picked up a phone, a landline, and you called to make your dining reservations. And I bought a book. I bought a book at a bookstore called Disney World for Adults. And I'll never forget, I took that book with me as a travel guide to get some characters to sign, because if I was going to do it, I was going to do the whole Disney thing. And we went to, I want to say Crystal Palace, where they have the Pooh characters.
Mhm.
And I was still kind of unsure about, what is this whole Disney thing? What am I supposed to do with these characters? And Tigger came to our table, and he saw my book, Disney for Adults, and he just, he like hit his eyes and, made this big deal because it said for adults. And I just thought, this is awesome. I love this, so I was kind of hooked from that point on. But we had a great time. We loved our visit. And then we took our son when he was not quite 3. Had a great time. My mother braved the Florida when she had a grandchild. Things changed. So
Yes.
she and my dad. And then I would say from that point on, we would go 2 to 3 times a year from Atlanta. And then we moved to the Florida Panhandle, started getting those Florida resident perks.
Mm-hmm.
So at least 2 to 3 times a year. And then we just became annual pass holders last year.
Yay.
So yay. So we've been visiting a lot more. So yeah, a lot of
Cool.
visits. When you call in and they say, have you visited more than 5 times? I'll kind of chuckle like,
Right. Like, where's the option for 100 plus,
Exactly.
So on the flip side, when was your first trip to the Disneyland resort, and how often do you get to go nowadays?
So Disneyland, I did visit as a young child. My dad had a business trip out there, so we tagged along, my mom and I, and they kind of surprised me with, I think it was just one day, and it was just Disneyland Park. That was the only one that was there at that time. And I remember I have vivid memories of that. And I don't have many pictures. They say sometimes you remember the picture more than the event. I really don't have many pictures, but I do remember, like, I was a huge Peter Pan fan. So I have a picture with Skull Rock. And I
Oh, cool.
remember that Peter Pan's flight ride, the forced perspective when it feels like you're really going over London. I really thought we were that high, and I kind of panicked, but it was in a good way,
Oh.
And my mom had to explain to me that it was just a model, So that was I remember that, and I remember Haunted Mansion, the ghost going home with me. I thought that was like real magic. That was sorcery, that there was really a ghost and that he had followed me home. So I love that visit. Did not go again for decades and decades. My husband and I visited last summer of last year. Had a amazing time, very emotional, I think, for
Mhm.
me to return there and remember being there with my parents all those years ago. And then, of course, I've since then become such a huge Disney fan that all of that meant a lot to me. And the fact that it was Walt's park, Walt Disney's park, that was huge. And then I returned for the PlanDisney training, was in Disneyland for the first time this year in December. So I didn't go for decades, and then I went twice last year. So
Hey, that's pretty cool.
it was
So
pretty cool.
it sounds like that trip in December was a really special one. And I know you're not able to share everything, but if you can share a little bit about that trip and maybe some highlights, anything new you got to experience, just, share what you can about the December trip.
Okay. So they usually do training at Walt Disney World, and it's a 3 or 4 day training. But this year, and I'm still not sure why, they did it in Disneyland. We stayed at the Disneyland Hotel, which was super fun.
Oh, yes.
All of us, there were like 25 new panelists. So a lot of us were meeting for the first time out there. So that was probably the highlight of the whole thing was, people that we knew through social media and that sort of thing. We actually got to meet along with the admin staff. So it was a real bonding, I guess, kind of thing. And we had, some hardcore training where it's a work environment and you're learning things, and, had to sign our contracts and all that. But then we had fun in the parks too. We got to tour Walt's apartment over the fire station.
Oh, so cool.
Just us, they divided us into little, groups. So we got to do it with the other panelists. And so that was something we kind of bonded with. And then they surprised us one day. We thought we were going to be in the training classroom again, and they said, no, we're going to the Burbank studios. So
Oh,
we
cool.
got to tour the studios and see Walt's office. And we were just kind of walking around the grounds, and this door opened, almost like a hidden door. And we were on a sidewalk. So there were about 8 of us panelists, and we had to, like, go sideways for these executives in their suits and things to walk by. Josh Tomorrow and Bob Iger were
Oh,
there.
wow.
And they said hi, and we were all just like trying to be cool. That was a highlight for sure.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy. I wonder if they what's the word? Orchestrated that to
I
have
do not think so.
release the Bob. No, that's pretty cool though. And Allie, did you ever tour the studios when we lived in California?
No, I know I went to a couple of the D23 film screenings, like
Yes.
when saw Newsies there and Sister Act, but I didn't do any official tour.
Okay. Yeah, Mom and I did the tour that's offered through D23, and it's
Right.
it's such a special place to just walk through the halls and see Walt's office and hold the Oscar, like all those things.
Yep.
Yeah, for all our listeners, if you're a D23 member and you have the opportunity to do the studio tour, Do it.
Do it. Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah, Disneyland is not, I don't have any trips coming up there, but you never know.
There's always room on the calendar for a
There's
Disney
always
trip.
room.
Oh,
I have been answering
sorry.
some Disneyland trips on the
Oh,
panel. Yeah, I've been pitching in with those. Yeah, because I
cool.
qualified. You have to
Yeah.
qualify to apply to visit it within a certain amount of time. So
Yeah.
yeah, that was really fun to answer a couple like that.
That is cool.
That's
Mhm.
great. So you also recently spent a few weeks in the Orlando area. Can you tell us about that trip?
Wow. Yes, my husband and I bought a camper with about half of America during the pandemic. It's a little 24-foot, it's got a queen bed and it has the separate shower. So it's kind of got all you need, but it is tight. And we decided we had done some weekend trips and long weekends, and I don't really know what possessed us, but we decided to spend 3 weeks in Orlando in our camper. So we did. I think because we live in the Panhandle in the winter and it gets kind of cold up here, and so we just wanted to see what the climate would be like down there. And we had these annual passes burning a hole in our pocket. So down we go, and it was cold a little bit the week that we were there, or the some of the time that we were there the first week. But we had a great time, and he still worked, so he would work in the camper, and I
Mm.
would, need to get out of his way, so I would go to the parks.
I mean, that's what you
Yeah,
do
be
when you're here in
Yeah.
Orlando.
exactly. And I'm trying to be a nice wife, a considerate wife. So yeah, I would head out there, and then he would join me for dinner, like at Epcot. That was so amazing. This is probably CJ's life every day, but it was
Yeah,
it
it
was
kind of
really
is.
cool for us. I know, and I kind of learned from you. I'm like, she just pops out, for this or that. So that's what I did, and it was super fun. We would do, and then our passes are weekday only.
Mhm.
So he took a few days off during that 3 weeks, and we did the Festival of the Arts, and
Oh, cool.
we took some full days as well. But mainly it was just to kind of whenever we felt like hopping over. We did a lot of Disney Springs.
Mhm.
I have another friend that lives in Orlando. I met her a couple of times, and then there were some other panelists here and there, and a childhood friend just happened to be there during that 3 weeks. So
Oh, cool.
it went really quickly, but it was super fun, and it was. I'm a planner. When you go 3 times a year, you book your dining 60 days out, have all that. And this was more of I literally made a park reservation in my Lyft to the park one day.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Probably do that too, don't you, CJ?
Yeah, I wake up sometimes, I'm like, where do I want to go today? Just scroll on the app, pick
So
my park and pack up the car and go.
so basically, I was CJ for 3 weeks
Yeah,
What a
you got
life.
the local
in a
experience.
camper. But it
Cool.
was amazing, and it was good to have that different perspective. And I'll tell you one thing I learned about like the walk up. I never do that because I'm such a planner, but the walk up wait list for restaurants, we got into
Yes.
so many places
Yeah.
without reservations, or just I expanded my quick service
Yes.
repertoire a little bit, and it was just a different way to Disney, and I loved it.
Yeah, it's being a local on one coast, being a local on the other, there are some differences in being a local, but here I feel like I'm finally getting it down, like finally figuring out what works. And we use that walk up wait list when we're traveling or when people from out of town come and visit. Like if I have a friend coming to visit and they're not quite sure where they want to eat, I say that's okay. We can figure it out day of. And you
It
can
worked.
still go with the flow here for sure.
Yeah, yep, that was good to know.
Yeah. So now we're going to talk about some of the differences between Walt Disney World and Disneyland Resort. So can you share some insight about vacation planning at Walt Disney World and how it differs from vacation planning at Disneyland?
Walt Disney World obviously has a lot more choices as far as 4 parks, lots of restaurants at those parks. Their Disney Springs area has so many restaurants and places to eat and things to do. So I think it just, is a little more involved because there's more choices. So planning can play a bigger role, I think. At Disneyland Resort, it's smaller, but that can make it trickier. I know when we went last summer, again, I was pretty on the ball with like booking my dining, but I still missed out. There's just not that many places.
Mhm.
So you have to be a little more go with the flow, I think, there, or certainly be on top of your planning. Same with the resorts. There's not as many resorts in Disneyland. So I just think even though Walt Disney World is a bigger thing to plan, it's a little more tricky at Disneyland because there are fewer choices. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I know what you're saying because demand ramps up for the places that are there at Disneyland. So if you really want something, you got to be on it versus here at Walt Disney World, there's a bunch of backup options if you
Right.
don't get what you really want. So
Mhm.
yeah, that totally makes sense.
Yeah.
So when it comes to the parks, like thinking specifically the theme parks, what do you think somebody who's familiar with Walt Disney World should know about the theme parks at Disneyland?
I did a lot of research myself before I went to Disneyland last summer, and I think warning is a bad word, but preparing them that it's smaller and that the castle is smaller. But by the same token, again, that's Walt's Park. And I mean, I, I was so emotional. It was such a sentimental, nostalgic thing for me. And so, it's a trade-off. It's smaller. But to me, I didn't feel like once I was in the park, it felt smaller.
Mm.
I had heard that maybe the walkways were smaller. I did not feel that at all.
Oh, interesting.
Once I was there, I felt like it was just as spacious. But like the booking windows and things like that, you definitely have to stay on top of. I
Yeah.
think for both of them, I would say the churros are better at Disneyland.
Yes, right? I'm friends with another podcaster whose son discovered the Disneyland churros, and
Yeah,
I guess he ate churros galore on his trip to Disneyland.
as one
And they
does.
yeah,
Yeah.
and they came to Walt Disney World and his son needed a churro immediately. So they're in Disney Springs, got a churro, and he said, "Dad, this is not the same."
Oh,
I get it.
So,
I
yeah,
get it.
yeah, I get it too. Yep.
I was just gonna say that reminds me, I'm going to Disneyland in about a month, and I need to put a churro on my list of things to do.
You know what?
That's
When we visited over the summer, a churro was not on my to-do list until we were walking through Fantasyland and I smelled them and I said, "Oh, I need a churro. I need a churro."
They're so
at
good.
training. I was with another panelist. We got there a day early and we were just walking along and she goes, I smell a pickle. And she had smelled this little girl's pickle and chased her down to see where she got this pickle. And it was the spicy pickle, I guess, over
Mhm.
in Frontierland. And so, yeah, she had to have one. So I teased her about, I smell a pickle.
That's funny. A friend of mine who lives here in Florida, she asked me, "Where can I get a pickle at Walt Disney World?" And I said, I haven't really seen them in the parks, but
I saw one.
one day I was I don't remember if it was Blizzard Beach or Typhoon Lagoon. I'm pretty sure it was Typhoon Lagoon. I walked by a little cart that was selling drinks and snacks, and there was a pickle right there. And I texted her, I said, "I found your pickle. It's in Typhoon Lagoon."
I think I saw one at Hollywood Studios
Okay.
the other day at one of those, the big, I don't know the name of it, but the big area over by Rock and Roller Coasters you're walking
Oh,
down.
yes,
Oh,
yes, yes.
yeah, you've got that like fruit stand looking
Yes.
building. I don't
Okay.
remember the name
So
of
down
it.
in the ice, there's some pickles. Yep.
Okay, I'll go check
Check
because I
that
am a pickle fan.
out.
So,
I
um,
think I think one more thing about I would help
oh
it
yes.
might help someone plan is that even if the rides have the same name, they can be very different.
Yes.
Yes.
So, to keep that in mind if
Yes.
and
We
they
have
could do a little research or just be surprised, whichever their personality is. I'm a researcher. So
Yeah, when I went Alli and I went to Disney World when we were, I don't know, it was the year 2000, a long time ago. My next trip after that wasn't until fall of 2014. So there had been, so many, I went through high school, college, partially through grad school, marriage, like a lot happened between those two trips. So when I went back for the first time, I did not really do any research on what the rides were like. I was just pleasantly surprised by everything. And I'm a planner too, but I think sometimes you got to keep some of that surprise factor.
I agree. I agree. And I think it's good to work in some winging it. I'm learning that myself. It
Yes.
doesn't have to be planned every second. You can definitely wing it and have a
Yes.
great time.
So, kind of on the flip side, for regular Disneyland resort goers, what are some tips that you can give if they're visiting Walt Disney World for the first time or the first time in a really long time?
For me, one of the biggest differences is the time it takes to get places and to deal with all and it's great that all of the complimentary transportation is available, but to kind of know how to use that, I think that does take a little practice and a little research, because there's so many options, which is great. But the flip side of that is kind of figuring it all out. But it's great to have it. And then I thought park hopping was so much more convenient at Disneyland Resort. It's just a matter of
Mhm.
bebopping, across the way. You might want to think about park hopping at Walt Disney World if you have that time, to spend to get from one park to the other, or if you'd rather do the one day, one park or whatever. But it's just, to me, that's one of the biggest differences to be prepared for.
Yeah, I talked to some of my friends who go to Walt Disney World a lot, and they're asking me, well, what should I know if I'm going to Disneyland? And I tell them, you should consider park hopping. And they're like, why would I park hop? And I say, why wouldn't you? It's a 2-minute walk across the
Yeah.
park. It's so easy. I agree with you. That's a really big difference for sure. And I remember the first trip back here, I was like shocked at how long it took to get from one park to another. I was so used to Disneyland just walking back and forth, and it's just not that easy here. But I know, like, my family in particular, when we were traveling here before we moved here, we used that park hopping time as like our nap time. Our son is not very good at naps, but he does need that downtime. So hopping on a bus or hopping on a monorail, that was enough of a chill time to kind of reset and continue on the rest of our day. So
That's a great tip. That would be a good like panel tip. Something I could use.
I share that with people because I hear people say, well, we're going to go back to the hotel for this long and da da da. And I just, I don't know. Personally, that's when we were traveling here, that just wasn't in our budget to like book in so much extra time at the hotel. And
Mhm.
if you can make it work to nap on a bus or on a monorail, I say go for it. But I know that's not for everybody. So,
Right. It's a good tip.
All right, so let's get some quick hits here. What are your top 3 rides at Walt Disney World?
And these, they change probably depending
Fair.
on the season. Currently, the past 3 weeks, Guardians of the Galaxy Cosmic Rewind is
No
top,
spoilers.
top of my list. Love it. It's so fun.
yes.
It's like
I get to ride it in 2 weeks, no spoilers.
okay. It's awesome. It's
Hang
awesome.
on. Allie, I have a question. Do you know the song list?
I have a general idea of the song list, so I would love to know what song you got, Elaine.
I have had nearly all of them. I've had conga. My favorite is probably Everybody Wants to Rule the World. And it's like every song makes it feel a little bit different.
Yeah.
So, but that's a really cool one just because it's so different. There's really
Mhm.
nothing else like it out there. So
Mhm.
I will say, and this was a tip I put on Instagram. I don't think this is a spoiler. I get a little motion sick in like the back seat of a car. And I have found that the center section of that ride is still just as fun and crazy and wild, but I don't get that woo kind of feeling.
Hmm.
So the ends, the front and the back, you might get a little whoopsie if you're prone to that. So that would just be my little tip without giving too much away. But
Yeah.
I would ride the thing all day long. It's so fun.
That's not a
Um,
spoiler. That's just really good advice.
okay. I also love Flight of Passage over at Pandora at Animal Kingdom. Again, that's kind of a unique one. There's really nothing like that one either, and it's just so beautiful, and that's a really cool one. And then my kind of standby favorite that I've had for years is Expedition Everest. I could
Oh,
ride
yes.
that over and over. Like I'll even get in the single rider line. That's how crazy I am. And I have to sit in the front, the very front of that one. I will wait for the front.
Oh, wow.
'Cause I love the view when you're at the very tippy top. You can
Yes.
just nighttime, daytime, it's really cool.
Yes. That
Um,
is the one ride I can see on my commute when I'm driving around. Like,
that's so cool.
there's like one part of the road where we're like, oh, there's Expedition Everest, and then the trees come in, and okay, it's gone. It reminds me of when we lived in California and driving up the 5 freeway, we would play Who Can See the Matterhorn First. So it's
Yes,
kind of like that. So that's
that's
a
very
special
cool.
ride for me.
But that's I've loved, and I would not ride it for years. I was a chicken. I would hold the backpacks while my son and husband rode. But I would say about 5 or 6 years ago, I said, my son, I raised a teenager. I can do anything now, so I'm going to ride this ride. And I was hooked. I love it.
And what about your top 3 rides at Disneyland?
Um,
Or Disneyland and California Adventure?
Okay,
Both.
I think I do have a combo. So Radiator Springs Racers at
Yes.
Good
Carsland. I
one.
love that ride. That is so much fun. And I'm not even a huge Cars fan as far as that franchise, but I really love that ride. I mean, I love Cars, but
Mhm.
it's probably not my favorite, but I did love the ride. I love Space Mountain at
Yes.
Disneyland.
Yeah,
Oh
us
my
too.
gosh. I think it's so much. I mean, I love the one at Walt Disney World too, but well, and I rode the first time I rode Space Mountain at Disneyland, it had the hyperspace overlay
Oh, yeah, the
with
Star
all the
Wars
Star
one.
Wars, which I'm a crazy Star Wars fan, so that might have had something to do with it. But I love the side by side
Mhm.
on that. So anyway, love that one. And then I loved It's a Small World just because
Oh,
that was Walt's ride, and and it's a little different as well.
you
As
got to go on the holiday edition
I
then, didn't you?
did, I
Oh,
did.
so
I
good.
loved it. I love that as well, but I'm talking just the regular
Yes.
too, the
Yes.
favorite.
And what about top 3 restaurants at Walt Disney World, including Disney Springs?
Oh,
And the
okay.
hotels.
And the hotels. Yep.
throw it
Any
all in
Disney
there.
property.
Okay. Let's see. I would say one of my top would be Cinderella's Royal Table. I'm plant-based, and they have a good plant-based option. Now, I have not eaten there in about a year, but the last time I ate there, they had this cheese board that was plant-based. That was one of the best plant-based dishes, hands down, anywhere. My husband and I both were just blown away by that. I don't even know that they still have it, so a little disclaimer there. But there's something about like they seated us at the front center table by the window so we could see all of Fantasyland. There's just something really special about eating there. So I don't know that the food is my favorite by far, but it's the experience, I think, of eating there. That was the very first restaurant my husband and I ate at on our very first trip
Oh,
together. And so it's
that's
a little bit
sweet.
romantic too. So that's a favorite. I love Nomad Lounge
Yes,
at
I
Animal
love that
Kingdom.
place. Yes.
And you can't do advanced reservations there, but I've
Right.
had really good luck. If you're there at opening, get right on the list and sit outside. You can watch those water cavalcades. The Impossible sliders are unbelievable. So that it's just a cool atmosphere. And the inside is cool too. I did the thing where you can donate. Yeah, I think you donate to like the World Conservation Fund or something, and then they'll hang it. It's like they'll hang it up at the dollar bill, but it's not a dollar bill. You write
Right.
something and they hang it up. I just think the whole experience there is really cool. And then we love Sci-Fi Dine-In Theater at
Oh,
Hollywood Studios. That's a favorite of my
yeah.
family. Our son loved that when he was little, and my husband and I just ate there last week.
I have not been probably since like 2015,
Yeah,
2016.
20. We did go in 2016. You were there with me at
Okay.
that time.
I'm gonna have to take my son. I think he would probably really enjoy that. Give him a little milkshake and watch TV. That's like his dream come true.
Yeah, exactly. Keeps them busy, keeps the kids occupied.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, they have a plant-based shake and
Okay,
burger there. Yep. So yeah,
cool.
that's a good one too. I just love the atmosphere there. And that's where I lost my ring last year.
Oh, that's right.
I threw it in the trash accidentally
Oh
and
no.
did not realize it for about half an hour. And we went back and they went through the trash. They could not find it. I was devastated. This ring here. As we were leaving the park, I'm literally in tears. My cell phone rang. They found one more bag of trash and it was in there.
Oh God.
Hallelujah.
It was like the sky opened up.
Yes.
This was Christmas Eve. I was like, it's a Christmas miracle.
Yes. Wow.
So I even love it more now. We loved it before. And my husband was so funny during that whole while we're waiting to see, are they going to find the rings? And the only thing that kept going through his mind was, is this going to ruin sci-fi for us? Will we not ever go back
Oh,
again? But we can go back
good, good.
now.
Alli lost something very important at Disneyland once. Do you remember that, Alli?
I mean, I know I've lost sunglasses on certain
No,
rides.
this
I
is
don't
more
remember.
important than that. You were like 15 or 16 years old. It's a piece of paper. Do you remember?
No. What are
You
you
lost
talking
your
about?
driver's permit.
Oh, that's right. I had my learner's permit and I was digging to pay for something at a store and I must have pulled it out and left it on the counter. Yeah, I left my learner's permit on the counter at a store in Frontierland.
Oh, oh,
Did
Yeah.
not get it back.
oh
Oh
no.
no.
It was fine.
Oh man.
But
You have your
I have
license now, so
I do have my license now, and I have also lost several pairs of sunglasses. I did not hold on to my hats and glasses as instructed, and therefore my glasses did not make it.
Mm.
yeah.
All right, what about your top 3 restaurants at the Disneyland Resort and California Adventure and hotels in downtown Disney and, all of the Disney property in California?
One of my favorites was Lamplight Lounge at Disney California Adventure. Sometimes I'm pescatarian, which means I do eat seafood. So I had the lobster nachos there. I've also they have a kids PB&J that I've ordered like for lunch, and they roll it up so that it looks like sushi. They like
Yes.
drizzle the jelly on it. It is
That's
adorable.
amazing.
It
My
is
son
amazing.
had that once before we moved. Yes.
That's amazing. I liked Blue Bayou, and that was one that we did the walk-up wait list for. It was really good. They had like a mushroom risotto that was good, and of course, it's just beautiful because
hmm
you feel like you're in New Orleans. And then Goofy's Kitchen, we did the breakfast
Oh,
buffet there. That was super fun.
I have never eaten there, but I kind of want to go and take my kid with me.
They have a peanut butter and jelly pizza. Are we seeing a theme here?
That's what I've heard. Did you try the PB&J pizza?
Of
And
course.
the verdict?
Delicious, delicious.
Really?
Yes. I mean, I had other things too, but yeah, I did have to try that.
Man, yeah, I heard about that pizza and I was like, I don't know how that would work, but
Yeah.
if you say it's good, then I'm gonna have to trust you on
I
it.
liked it. So what are some of your all's favorites real quick? Like, or what do you think about mine? Would you agree, disagree with some of them?
I really like Lamplight. I'm right there with you. It's so good. And I also really like Nomad Lounge.
Okay.
I would say for Walt Disney World, I really like Homecoming in Disney Springs. That's a really good place. And we're often a party of like 8 or 10, and somehow we can always get reservations there. I don't know what it is. We luck out into these big party reservations there. So,
That's cool.
yeah. And then at both coasts, I really like Splitsville in
Oh
downtown Disney
yeah, I
and
do
Disney
too.
Spring. Yeah, I just it's a nice wide menu, so pretty much everybody is happy there. But I will say that they're both pretty loud inside, so we try to go during off hours when it's not as loud.
Do you bowl?
No, I haven't bowled there yet, but I heard in Orlando they have something called mini feather bowling, which I really want to try. I watched some YouTuber did like a video on it, and you kind of have these little, they look like little cheese wheels, but they're not cheese. They're made of wood. And you
I'm in if it's cheap.
there's another one that has a feather sticking out of it, and it's at one end of the board, and you roll your wheel and try to hit it. So it's kind of like bocce ball, but with rolling, and it's on a curved, like half pipe kind of surface. So it sounds interesting, and I've been wanting to try that. The information I found on it was pre-COVID, so I don't know if it's still available, but it sounds fun. So
It does.
Yeah, and I am with you on Cinderella's Royal Table. My husband and I went there on our honeymoon for breakfast one day, and it was just the atmosphere was fantastic. Had a great time there. All right. What about your top 3 entertainment experiences at the Walt Disney World Resort?
These are a little tougher for me because we are riders. We are on the rides all day. We don't always stop to watch the shows and
Yeah,
the
same.
parades and things. Yeah, but I do love Festival of the Lion King. That's a favorite
oh,
over
that's
Animal
a good one.
It's not super long and it's upbeat, and I love the tumble monkeys and all that. So that's always a must do. I had Cirque du Soleil at Disney Springs. The Drawn to Life. I don't know if you've seen that, CJ, but it ties in the Disney theme, so that's kind of cool. I think that's a really cool one. It's different.
Hmm.
And then I'm excited about Happily Ever After. I do like that one. I think that's returning like in April to Walt
Yeah.
Disney World, so I'll be excited about that.
Yeah, I'm excited for that to come back too. And I wonder, I don't know if it's coming back exactly the same as it was. So I'm very curious if it's
Yeah,
going to be different at all.
I hope not.
I know. Well, I have my park reservation set for April 3rd, the night it comes back. So we'll see how it is.
No, yeah. And I want to do an honorable mention for the little Rainbow Connection show at Epcot.
Oh, yes.
That one just gets me every time.
Oh,
I love
it's so good. It's
it
so
is.
good.
It
And
is.
I know, they said the Beacon of Magic, that's there for the 50th anniversary, but I really hope they keep the Spaceship Earth shows.
Yes, they're amazing. They really are.
Yes.
Great addition.
Alli, you're not going to Epcot this. Oh, yes, you
Yeah,
are.
we are.
This trip?
I'm going with you.
Well, okay, by the time this episode comes out, she'll have been to Epcot and I will have forced her to stay late to see the Beacon of Magic show.
You're gonna force me to stay at a Disney park? Oh no! What am I gonna do?
Trust me, you're gonna like the Beacon of Magic. You haven't seen it yet, right?
No,
Okay. Okay, cool. Yeah, you're gonna love it.
You will.
I
You will. You will.
I may have seen still images, but I haven't seen any videos.
Oh no,
So,
still images, no. Don't do it justice.
all right. And what about your top 3 entertainment experiences at the Disneyland Resort?
I really enjoyed World of Color, but now we did see it at the
Yes.
holidays, so I assume it's still, was a little different. But that just the whole concept of that
Mhm.
is super cool. And then I love the Spider-Man stunt show over at Avengers Campus. I'm a big Spider-Man fan, so that was really fun.
Mhm.
And then I caught part of the Fantasmic when it came back, but I
Oh
didn't get to
yes.
see all of it. But that was pretty cool too.
Yeah. That Spider-Man Stuntronic is really cool.
Yeah.
That's crazy. I think the Stuntronic hit the wall the day after we were there. I was
Oh my
literally there
gosh.
the day before. I don't know what I would have done. Can you imagine the kids going, "Ah,"
Is he
you know,
okay?
but
Yeah.
that was pretty cool.
Yeah. So this season, we've been covering the e-tickets on our show, doing a head-to-head showdown of e-ticket attractions between Walt Disney World Resort and Disneyland Resort. We know some of these are not exact comparisons, but they're pretty close in terms of the theming or the ride type or something like that. So we figured we'd ask you, a Disney Parks expert, which attraction takes the cake as the better version in our e-ticket matchups this season. So we're not going to do every single matchup that we have, but we'll go through most of them.
Okay.
And at the end of our season, when are we? We're going to be done in June.
June,
So,
maybe even July, since we're gonna do we've got some trip reports coming up as well. So the finale might be in July.
yes. So this summer, we're going to do a tally of which resort wins as far as who has the better e-tickets. We've been keeping track, and honestly, I don't know who's winning so far because we write down the winner and then we file it away in Google Docs. But we're going to do a showdown with you, and in the event of a tie between Alli and I at the end, we might use your answers to help
Okay.
determine the tie break. So, no
Pressure.
pressure. So, Elaine, it's time for your showdown. Which e-ticket stands out above the crowd? And our first matchup is Expedition Everest, Legend of the Forbidden Mountain at Animal Kingdom versus Matterhorn bobsleds at Disneyland.
That's a tough one. I just said I loved Expedition Everest, but there is something about the Matterhorn having that nostalgia factor and, the rumor of the basketball goal underneath, if you guys heard that.
Yes.
But I would have to say, just as a ride and attraction itself, the theming and everything is just better at Everest. So I'm gonna have to go
Okay.
with Everest on
All right. I think that's the way that Alli and I went too on that one.
Oh
that.
yeah.
Next up, we are taking a trip to Tomorrowland to talk about Space Mountain at Magic Kingdom versus Space Mountain at Disneyland.
I'm going to give that one to Disneyland Resort. I love the side by side seating. It seems so much smoother to me. And of course, I've seen it with the hyperspace overlay and without, so I have seen it both ways. And I'm going to give that one a hands down. Yep,
Yep.
Disneyland.
Now, I have a question just out of curiosity. Have you done any of the Christmas party or the Halloween party to see the overlays at the Magic Kingdom version?
We did a villains night, and I
Okay.
think it was completely dark. They like turned every light out
Mhm.
at Space Mountain, but that's maybe the only one I've done. And I mean, it really wasn't that different. I didn't think.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay.
That's the only one I've done.
Yeah, I haven't done any of the overlays here at Magic Kingdom, so maybe this year I'll pony up the money for a ticket to one of the after hours parties. Okay, next up we have Big Thunder Mountain Railroad at Magic Kingdom versus Big Thunder Mountain Railroad at Disneyland.
And Big Thunder is a big favorite of mine. That was one of the first
Same.
coasters that I got the nerve up to ride, and I really like it. I would probably give that one to Disneyland Resort. I love the goat stare. Do y'all know that
Yes.
Oh yeah.
tip? If you stare at the goat and you get those G forces as you go around, I think that's really cool. And I think the little town at the end at
Hmm.
night, especially in Disneyland, is
Oh
really
yeah.
cool. So yeah, I would give that one to Disneyland, I think.
Cool. Yeah, I've tried to replicate the goat trick at Magic Kingdom and I just can't pull it off.
So I actually asked this last week, and you basically kind of look behind you on any of
Okay.
the big curves, and you
Okay.
do get the feeling, but not quite as much. The goat's on the wrong side, so you
Yes.
kind of have to look the other way. But yeah, it works much better at Disneyland.
So if I try it at Magic Kingdom, do we still call it the goat trick or does it have another name? I
I
mean,
don't know. We could name it whatever we'd
I don't
like.
know. Maybe the rock trick because there's rocks. I don't know. Okay, next up is kind of an interesting one. This is Star Wars experiences, but we divided this episode into Star Wars Galaxy's Edge and Star Tours. So let's talk about Star Wars Galaxy's Edge at Hollywood Studios versus Star Wars Galaxy's Edge at Disneyland.
I really don't see that much difference between the two. I think the theming ties in a little better at Hollywood Studios for me. And then you also have the tie-in of the Galactic Star Cruiser, which interacts with
Hmm.
Galaxy's Edge. So just for those reasons alone, I would probably say Walt Disney World.
Okay. And then for Star Tours as a ride.
I would probably give that one to Walt Disney World just because I have done it more maybe and have seen more of the different films. That's probably not a very good reason, but I don't see a whole lot. And I also think it's closer in proximity to Galaxy's Edge, so that
Mhm.
ties it in a little bit more.
That makes sense. Yeah, for us, I think Allie and I, we both picked Star Tours at Hollywood Studios because of the queue being so much better
That's true.
themed. Yeah, the queue at Disneyland is a little like switch back, switch back, switch back, then you're inside a building. Yeah.
Cool.
Okay, so Splash Mountain at Magic Kingdom just closed, and we don't, as of now, we don't have a closing date for Splash Mountain in Disneyland, but we're going to pretend Splash Mountain at Magic Kingdom's still open. So let's do a Splash Mountain showdown.
I'm going to say Walt Disney World because of the bench seating.
Oh, yes.
Better than the one behind the other at Disneyland. My family is a big ride photo family. We love to do crazy things on ride photos, and it's just easier to do if you're on benches together, I think.
Mhm.
That's a
true.
strange reason. And that ride is a little hard for me, that big drop at the end. And so I like having somebody to hang on to. That's a very personal reason. But
No, I'm with you. I'm with you there.
yeah, Alli doesn't like the big drops.
I really don't.
I don't either.
Next up, we're going to go to Animal Kingdom for Dinosaur versus Indiana Jones Adventure at Disneyland.
I'm going to probably give this to Indiana Jones at Disneyland. I think that queue is amazing, and I think the ride itself is so varied. There's different scenes, different rooms. I like Dinosaur, but it's kind of just plants and dinosaurs, the whole way through. So I'm going to give that to Indiana Jones just on theming and on the queue.
Your comment about the queue, it reminds me of kind of like the next generation Haunted Mansion queue. I think Haunted Mansion was kind of a turning point in Disney history as far as having like really good queues. It kind of builds up the story, and I think Indiana Jones continues that legacy just in a much more elevated way.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Next up is Radiator Springs Racers at California Adventure versus Test Track at Epcot.
I love Test Track. That's a sentimental favorite for my family, but Radiator Springs Racers definitely has more of a story. I love the two cars racing at the end. The outside section is so much longer. So definitely, I think that's a Disneyland by far for me.
Yeah, we have not recorded this episode yet, and I'm thinking ahead about which way I'm going to go. Honestly, I'm not sure yet. I don't know. They're both very good rides.
I remember Test Track, the previous version of Test
Yeah.
Track too, and I may have liked it a little better than the current one.
Yeah, Alli and I did that one when we visited Disneyland, and Walt Disney World, and I have vague memories of what it was like. But
I remember enjoying it a lot.
Yes, and my son really loves Test Track, so
Yes,
that might bias me a little bit.
Me too. I feel the same.
And our final showdown will be between Avatar Flight of Passage at Animal Kingdom and Soarin', either the DCA or Epcot version. They're so similar.
I'm going to go with Flight of Passage.